David Johansen, the flamboyant and electrifying frontman of the New York Dolls, was a man of many faces: punk rock pioneer, blues crooner, and even the suave, martini-sipping Buster Poindexter. For over 5 decades, he shaped the sound of rock music, leaving behind a career as unpredictable and eclectic as his persona. But on February 28, 2025, the world lost this musical chameleon when he passed away at his Staten Island home after a long battle with cancer. How does a man who once set stages ablaze with his energy, defying convention at every turn, come to such a quiet end? Stay with us as we take you inside these one-of-a-kind properties. David Johansen's Staten Island home wasn't just a house, it was a museum of his eclectic life, a place where rock and roll met old-school New York charm. Tucked away from the chaos of the city, the home reflected his ever-evolving artistic identity, filled with memorabilia from his decades in music, vintage oddities, and the bohemian touches of his final wife, artist Mara Hennessy, who was left to manage it after his passing. Walking through the front door, visitors were greeted by walls adorned with framed concert posters, rare vinyl records, and classic black and white photos capturing moments from his time with the New York Dolls, as well as his reinvention as Buster Poindexter. The living room, a cozy yet dramatic space, had deep leather couches, antique rugs, and a grand piano. Johansen never quite masked for the occasional impromptu jam session. Scattered throughout were vintage lamps, kitschy bar signs, and old jukeboxes, reminders of his love for classic rock and blues. One of the most striking rooms in the house was Johansen's music studio, a small but chaotic space filled with stacks of handwritten lyrics, old guitars, and shelves overflowing with records from blues legends and punk pioneers alike. This was where he spent hours tinkering with melodies, reflecting on his past, and in his later years, finding solace in the music that first inspired him. A collection of hats, scarves, and sunglasses, his signature accessories, hung by the door, remnants of his ever-evolving onstage persona. The kitchen was an unexpectedly homey contrast to the rock star aesthetic of the rest of the house. It was filled with natural light, lined with vintage countertops, and always stocked with coffee and wine. He and Mara often spent mornings here, sipping espresso while listening to jazz records. The dining room, with its long wooden table and mismatched chairs, had hosted many lively dinners. Fellow musicians and artists gathered to trade stories about the wild days of rock and roll. Upstairs, the bedroom was a mix of romantic and rustic, decorated with warm earth tones and shelves lined with books about music, history, and philosophy. The walls carried echoes of his past, a photo of him and the Dolls, a framed ticket from one of his earliest gigs, and a note from a fan that he kept close. It was a peaceful retreat, a stark contrast to his onstage energy. But it was in the back den, a quiet, dimly lit room where he often listened to records or read in solitude, where Johansen passed away. A vintage leather armchair by the window, where he liked to sit and reflect, remained untouched after his passing. A stack of books was left beside it, along with a half-empty glass of bourbon, the drink he often nursed while lost in thought. The room was filled with the scent of old wood and vinyl, a time capsule of his legacy. After his death, Mara was left to manage the home, preserving it as a tribute to the man she had loved. While parts of the house were kept exactly as Johansen left them, there were whispers that she might eventually turn it into a space for artists, a place where music, creativity, and storytelling could continue to thrive, just as he would have wanted. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for the next update.